Welcome, welcome, welcome. And my name is ATIYA, the founder of the Marriage Tree, where we help men, women, and couples discover their own truth for a better marriage and relationship. I'm excited to welcome you today to Bridging the Gap After a Communication Breakdown. Now, communication is a very crucial aspect of relating, and breakdowns are bound to happen at some point in time in every relationship. So on this message, I would like to take the time to share 5 ways to bridge a gap after communication has broken down. Now, effective communication is important not just in relationships, but in life. We read, we speak, we write, we listen, and even communicate nonverbally. And our orientation of mind and life experiences plays a major role in how we perceive things and how we filter information. Yet the tools of communication happen on many levels, and one of the greatest tools of the communication process is listening. Listening helps us to deeply understand another human being. Now, people in general, myself included, oftentimes we seek to first be understood in order to get the point across. However, in order for there to be a clear exchange, we must be willing to seek to understand the other person and hear not only what they are saying, but also to understand what they mean by what they say. Many arguments and disagreements happen because people don't take the time to communicate clearly. And even when a misunderstanding happens, often they are quick to end the discussion to avoid confrontation or to not be bothered with the frustration of getting the message across more clearly. But I want to stress that unwillingness to confront the issue or laziness should not get in the way of communicating clearly. I want to repeat that. The unwillingness to confront the issue or just simple laziness should never get in the way of communicating clearly. There is a real difference from what people say and what they actually mean. And this is the area where all too often disagreements arise and relationships crumble. In many cases, unless and until you take the necessary time to re-examine the disagreement, ill feelings or a gap may continue to exist. So to work through a problem, whether it is in communication or otherwise, it is necessary to go back to analyze and examine the situation, even if you have gotten through it by happenstance. The reason being is so that all parties can understand where the breakdown occurred and prevent it from happening again. There's a saying that those who do not learn the lessons of past are doomed to repeat them. And this is also true in communication as well. Until people take the time to understand how a communication gap or breakdown happened in the first place, they are bound to repeat the same process, not making any significant changes in the situation. And ultimately, what happens is you end up avoiding certain levels of communication with that person to avoid conflict, or just decide not to be bothered taking the position that the person is too difficult to deal with. And that's what happens more times than not. You get into a situation, there was a communication breakdown, you stop the process of communicating by either just saying forget it, don't worry about it, and just continue on with the relationship even though you have that big elephant in the room, or you just take the position that I'm not going to talk to this person about certain things because it's always difficult. That is not the answer. Real and authentic relationships are built on honesty and a willingness to speak your truth, even if it isn't convenient or not as easy as you would like it to be. All parties must be willing to take the necessary time to problem solve a situation and communicate thoroughly. Avoiding conflict or confrontation is not always the best, nor sweeping things under the rug. Addressing them is what helps you and the one you are interacting with to grow. And eventually it gets easier because there becomes a mutual understanding. People process information differently. And so how you may respond to a matter or how you perceive or understand something is not necessarily how that other person perceives and understands it, because you have two different, very real different orientations of mind. And it's not that one is better than the other. It's just that you process information differently. And the more you understand understand one another, the better you have the ability to communicate clearly to one another. Now, any person you decide to interact with is or should be a joint partner in the process of communication. Communication is not one-sided. And regardless of the level of interaction or the depth of it, you owe yourself and the other person quality interactions that serve you and them well. Therefore, I want to share these 5 steps, or these 5 ways that may help you to work through the breakdown in communication to establishing an even stronger connection of mutual understanding, because it's mutual understanding that's really, really key in the communication process. Okay, so one of the things you want to do when there's a communication process is breakdown, Go back to the beginning and start again. Retrace the steps of dialogue to determine where the breakdown happened and deal with that point first and foremost. Avoid bringing up yesterday, last week, or last month when it has absolutely nothing to do with what happened today. So deal with the point of breakdown first, and then if necessary, discuss other unresolved issues that had a bearing on the situation. Confront the issue lovingly and compassionately, not veering away from the present issue at hand. The second thing you want to do is hear one another out. Give the other person a chance to say what they have to say without interruption. Take the time to hear where the breakdown occurred for others, and then make your point. Remember that the goal is a win-win and a mutually beneficial resolution. Even when relationships dissolve, they can do so amicably. So it's really important to hear one another out, hear one another's position and where they stand, and even, why they feel the way they do. But it's important to hear one another out. A third thing to do, which might be very, very difficult for some people, is take responsibility for your part of the breakdown and be accountable for the words you speak. And that's really important, because what you say and what you mean can and often are 2 different things. People, no matter how intuitive they are not mind readers. And while you may understand exactly what you mean by what you are saying, it doesn't mean that the message is clear to the next person. And I often, as a relationship coach and the marriage strategist, I see this a lot. A person says something, the other person perceives it to mean something else than what the sender of the message actually meant. So it's important when a person communicates to you, I don't understand, or I have a problem with what you said, take responsibility for your part of the breakdown and be accountable for the words that you speak. The other person listening to you is not always receiving the message the way you are intending it. And it is rarely a case of the person not listening. It's more of a case of how people process information. Therefore, avoid accusing a person of not listening. Instead, find out what they heard and understood of the message that you sent, and communicate in a way to structure your message to your audience. If you are the one listening, it's important to ask questions to make sure that you actually understand what the person is saying and what they meant by what they said. Avoid making assumptions or prejudgments. And this is another reason why communication breaks down, is because one person says something, you may misunderstand what they say, you immediately pass judgment on what they said. They never intended the message in terms of how you received it. So it creates a breakdown because one person thinking one thing, another's thinking another. So it's really important to talk through it, to be clear on what's meant, and to take responsibility for your part of the breakdown and be accountable for the words you speak. The fourth thing is to be patient and take your time to speak clearly and listen patiently. And this is a hard one. This oftentimes is a hard one because someone think they're speaking clearly and they're not, and then other people who's listening are quick to jump in and jump on them immediately. But it's important to be patient and take your time to speak clearly and take your time to listen patiently, because effective communication is purposeful and consists of an adequate exchange of information to produce the intended result. So it's Critical to take the necessary time to communicate fully. Don't be quick to say never mind or forget it because you're frustrated, and take your time to process what you need to convey, even if it takes time. Often people rush through discussions or don't take the time to speak and process clearly, leaving room for additional misunderstanding. And then the fifth thing is take a break or a pause if necessary to regroup. Sometimes when you pause for a moment, when things don't seem to be going anywhere in the conversation, it allows you and the other party to cool down and collect your emotions. However, the pause should not be more than 15 minutes. It's important to resolve issues. It's okay if you don't agree on a matter, but even in areas of disagreement, the two of you should develop the level of maturity to be able to agree on how you will handle a situation moving forward. And allow your mate or the other person you're communicating with to maintain their own sense of power and their right to self-determination. Because at the end of the day, the goal and the outcome is win-win, not win-lose. So I thank you for listening to 5 ways to bridge the gap after a communication breakdown, and I look forward to talking with you next time. Have a great day.